This is Hilda K. Broady. Welcome to In My Shoes. Thank you for choosing In My Shoes, where we are attempting to make a different approach to service in the world. Today I have as my guest a very special guy. He's the CEO of STRUGG. He has various programs within STRUGG. I'd like for you to meet Mr. Joe Smith.
Well, thank you, Hilda, for having me on In My Shoes. It is certainly a pleasure.
Thank you for coming.
I'm looking forward to this interview. I'm very passionate about our youth, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about what you do with STRUGG and the youth?
Absolutely. STRUGG Inc. is a nonprofit organization that specializes in ReEntry programs. ReEntry, that's the buzzword. We deal with people that are returning from incarceration and helping them to transition back into mainstream society. Now, so we have prisoner reentry and we also have youth reentry. And I'm here to focus today on the youth part. Many people wonder or ask, youth reentry, it doesn't seem to make sense. You know, what are they re-entering into or from? And at STRUGG, because of our work with prisoners, we develop an approach in truly a preventative fashion to keep people from prisons in the first place. So that's where the youth reentry comes in at, because many of our youths, especially those that are youth of color or impoverished, find themselves in situations that lead them to incarceration. Nothing to do just by circumstances. Doesn't mean they're good kids, bad kids, just circumstances. And they find themselves in a set of conditions that promote or lead to incarceration or other destructive behaviors. So this whole youth reentry is geared at redirecting those paths and helping them to overcome first understand the circumstances, then find ways to overcome those circumstances, helping them to truly choose their own path. We all have a set of given circumstances. Take, for instance, a 5-year-old child. Whatever socioeconomic status they find themselves in, it's nothing to do with them. You know, whatever circumstances, the family life or income, places where you live, they are truly just part of the whole setup. And we try to instill in them the ideas, the values, the morals, and other things necessary to overcome whatever challenges that they are faced with.
So your age range is?
I'm glad you asked. To me, and STRUGG, we define youth as individuals who are age 25 years of age and younger. So it's pretty broad, and even that is not by accident our definition of youth. Some people would say, well, they would say from 0 to maybe late teens, but we have extended our definition of youth.
But even the country has, because they've extended parents' health care to age 26, so they're kind of recognizing that you're still a youth, even if you've attained the age of the majority.
I'm glad you said that. Sometimes we do similar things or the same things for different reasons. I'm not sure why, and that is a good point. I never thought about that in terms of like health insurance and stuff. But our reasons, I would assure you, is quite different from the country's reasons. But I never made that. Thank you. Yeah.
You know, so are your youth coming mainly from formerly incarcerated individuals' families, or just the general public?
Just in general. Now we are all aware of this mass incarceration problem. And I'll say as a black man that people that look like me, any of us, if we were honest with ourselves, have either been incarcerated, know someone that is incarcerated, or one day may be incarcerated. So with the youth that we work with, they are affected by incarceration. Some may be directly impacted where a parent is incarcerated or a close relative, and others have the spirit of inclusion is probably more expanded. But in terms of incarceration, and particularly black youths, we are all included one way or the other. But our focus is truly to help prevent incarceration. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
All right.
Because you also have some activities that you do with the youth,
Yes.
other than can you just share a little bit?
Yeah, with the youth, the first thing we do is try to help them assess where they are. And a big part of this is education. And I've seen among many of the people I've worked with, the breakdown in the educational system at large and the impact it has on a child's self-worth. So the first step we do, because they're in school, mostly in public schools, most are struggling. Many are in what has been now deemed special education classes or programs. And the self-esteem and the self-worth of these children are severely retarded, lowered. I don't mean that they are mentally retarded, but just how they see themselves is damaged.
The education system is not really addressing their needs
No.
in a meaningful way. They do it on paper,
Right.
but actually, if a child has, say, a learning disability, by the time they get to the third grade, if it's not addressed properly, that child is falling further and further behind. So by the time they are pushed forward, because they're not being promoted, they're being pushed forward.
Right.
So by the time they get to the sixth grade, all hell is breaking loose because they're feeling I'm not worth anything, I'm stupid, and that's kind of what I've been my experience.
I'm so glad you said that. Just a little about special education first. We have to assess, is it truly a learning disability or is it a behavioral issue? And I think in public schools, what happens is if a child acts out or is aggressive or is just uninterested because of just severe boredom, I think because of and I'm not bashing the public school, especially not in New York City, it's a large one. And I'm sure that they have difficulties trying to maneuver this big system. So kids are just grouped for whatever reason. If you have behavioral issues, you're just uninterested in learning or seemingly uninterested, then you're just deemed as they can't learn or there's a disability, and they're clumped into these special education groups, which does anything but educate. It becomes more of just keeping them in line. Not too different from, I guess, the criminal justice or the correction system. You know, so where your teachers are actually like correction officers, just trying to keep peace and order or keep the students from killing each other, which may be literal or not, but just mass destruction. So the first thing I do is try to assess, does this child really have a learning disability? And even if the answer is yes, it does not mean that they can't learn, they'll just learn differently. And what I have found is most of them do not have, at least the ones I've worked with, do not really have true learning disabilities.
They're just educationally disadvantaged.
Education disadvantage. You mentioned the third grade. I'm so glad you did. And it becomes challenging, especially as you're dealing with older children, or teens and preteens, because part of what we have to do, and every time I do it, I cuss the system. I cuss this system that is lucrative. Money's flowing out the yang, and you have people at the community level trying to fix what was wrong with no money, just because it's the right thing to do. But we have to regress, take these youth back to, some go back to kindergarten, we take some back to first grade, we take most back to second and third grade, because that's where the breakdown in this learning process occurred. And I say it becomes challenging because if you're dealing with a 15-year-old, and at STRUGG we work on not even a shoestring budget. And I'm trying to paint this picture so if you can imagine, we have everyone in one room. So you may be a 15-year-old and I'm a 7-year-old, and we're at the same table, working on different things. But my challenge now is, how do I treat the 15-year-old or help that 15-year-old regress without further damaging their self-esteem? Meaning that this 15-year-old is doing the same work that the 7-year-old next to them is doing, and probably struggling with it. So it's a checks and balance. How do you help the person without further creating damage? So we take them back. And what I have found is the greatest breakdown happens right between second and third grade, that 8-year-old stage. And in terms of education, it usually have to do with the time when multiplication, the times table, 1 times 1 is 1, and 12 times 12 is what, 144? But that's where the greatest breakdown happens in terms of math. And even with grammar or English. And once it happens there, if no one catches it, the rest is history. So that means I'll be in the 9th, 10th, if I make it that far, grades, and lost in the sauce. At that point, the teachers don't have time to give me that one-on-one. I can't express what's wrong. The school can't assess what's wrong. So then you got a whole group that's just written off that will eventually drop out, will eventually get the cheddar, as it were, or the bling bling by any means necessary, and the cycle keeps going on. So what we have done is take these young people back, young men, young women, whatever the case, take them back to that point and try to start fresh. And I'll tell you what I have seen, and parents can confirm that the results are astounding. Because first, for the first time, the look on the kids' faces, I get it. I'm not dumb after all. It took me a little longer, but I can get it. And we tried to bring in real life examples to help them get it. We tried to demystify education.
Which is where the schools are failing, because they don't help the students interpret the math into real life. Because you're doing math every day, and our kids tend to not know that I'm doing arithmetic and math every day, just telling time. I'm doing fractions, and I've always told my clients, because they come in and say, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at math. And I said, well, when you go to the store, do you get the correct change? And ain't nobody gonna take my money, you know what I'm saying? So you're good at math because you know how much money you're supposed to get back. You need to put it to real life. And that's partially where the schools have failed, in that nobody knows that this is real life. This is arithmetic is that class I go to, and I hate it because I don't know what's going on.
Absolutely. But I tell you, there's no greater joy for me. It's worth all the money in the world. You can't pay me enough when I see that child, or hear the parents coming back and telling me that, Joe, my son went up 4 grade levels, and I'm talking just a matter of months.
Yes.
4 grade levels. I'm not gonna cry, but I mean it is overwhelming. You know, it is. It's overwhelming, and if I do cry, and I'm gonna try not to, but I'm passionate about this. It is just because I see a system where seemingly it's not set up or designed to actually help the kids.
It appears, not saying that it is, but it appears that it's set up for them to fail.
Absolutely.
It's not new that this system is like this.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was before I even went to school, my sister would come home and teach me what she learned in school.
Yeah.
So by the time I got to the 1st grade, I could read, I could write, I could do arithmetic, I could do fractions, I could tell time.
Yeah.
So how did I get stupid between the 1st and the 6th grade? Because by the time I got to the 6th grade, I was 2 grades behind.
Wow.
And that was just going to schools in Bed-Stuy, Brownsville, Fort Greene, those areas, East New York, those areas of Brooklyn.
Right.
Well, when we went to Crown Heights, I was tested. I kept saying, well, when did I get stupid? When did I get stupid? And luckily, I had a teacher in the 6th grade who says, you're not.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know what happened where you've been, but let me tell you what we're going to do to make it better.
Yeah.
And he said, you're going to read anything and everything. And it's going to be you in the dictionary. Look up the words. Don't skip over them if you don't know them. Look it up. He said, between the 6th and the 7th grade, he said, I want you to read anything and everything. Read it. Yeah. By the time I got to the 7th grade, I was 7.6.
Wow.
Just from reading over the summer, so July and August. So
you raise a valid point. I remember growing up, and you hear teachers telling you, there was even a commercial, reading is fundamental.
Exactly.
And in that word fundamental, I like the first 3 letters, fun. So you have to, I encourage people to read, especially that which you like. And eventually it'll spill over, you can read anything. I am now an avid reader, but I had to learn that it's okay to read things that you like. And when I'm saying fun, it doesn't have to be fun in games, but just something that interests you. And then you develop the skills and techniques that are necessary. Then once you've mastered it on things that interest you, it becomes easier to transfer it to things that may be of less interest, but required.
Right, exactly.
So you got to make it fun. So I tell the kids all of the time, what do you like? One young man, he likes comic books. So, read comics. I just need you to read. And they have the punctuations. We talk period. What does that mean? Stop. And I make them read aloud. Why I got to read aloud, Mr. Joe? Because I need to hear you. And when you hear you, eventually you learn. And especially when what you're reading is academically sound or grammatically correct in its presentation, that becomes part of you. So now when you do your own writing, you say, well, that doesn't sound right. I can't quite figure out. I know it's not correct, which is a good thing.
So now you're going to investigate.
How do I fix it? So, and I'm smiling because I have fun doing this.
They have some tools that you may find useful with this. Is a Franklin Merriam speaking dictionary. I'm gonna make sure you get one.
Please do.
For your program, because a lot of times they say look the word up or sound it out, and if the kid is not hooked on phonics or has no clue what phonics are, they looking at you like. And your point. This little teeny thing, it costs less than $40. And I know that they have Xbox or whatever those toys are that they play with. I used to give it to my clients. You're going to take this dictionary, the speaking dictionary, and I'm going to get you batteries and a battery charger so that you will never be without.
Wow.
You take this with you and you use this. I said, and it looks like a phone. So it's not like I'm making you stand out from the crowd.
Square,
You're not standing out in the crowd. And it also has the speaking calculator.
Wow.
and it has word games.
Wow.
So you can play the games on it, and it really is a helpful tool. There's a lot of useful technology in the past 15 years that the schools haven't deemed necessary to just inform the parents. Don't, if the school is not going to pay for it for the student, give the parent the option of skipping the Xbox, and I should stop saying Xbox.
Right.
But I don't know the other toys that are out there.
We all know Xbox.
The Wii and all of that. Skip that and do this. And it's and I've given it to older people, and they said, "Wow, if I had had this when I was in school, in real school." No, you in real school now also, because they don't think of it as real school when you're doing the tutoring or you're doing that. It's something that I have to do, but it's not real school. But if they had it earlier, because we want to do early intervention and provide them with that, it would be less stressful. It's not going to take away everything, but it's going to be less stressful on the kids, because they also have in the Bronx, and I think it's the only place that has a center for the treatment of learning disabilities.
Wow.
It used to be the Rose Kennedy, now it's the Fisher Landau Center for the, and they actually assess. And if the kid doesn't have a learning disability and it turns out that they're educationally disadvantaged, then they have avenues for them.
Right.
But sometimes someone with a learning disability can only be with 5-to-1 ratio with the instructor. But Fisher Landau supplements the school.
Wow.
But you have to have straight Medicaid. That's or pay.
Right.
And a lot of our kids' families cannot afford to pay. So if the schools are not doing it and there's a facility out there that can do it, then shouldn't the Department of Education be supplementing
You would think.
that?
Yeah.
Because the schools are overcrowded or understaffed, or what is the new buzzword for why the kids are not learning in schools? Oh, the core curriculum now?
Yeah.
Because now they're moving away from teaching them how to take a test, and they're supposed to be moving toward living life.
You know, you touched upon a lot of things. Now, one thing in terms of pay. Now, when we're running this program at STRUGG, I do, because we have no budget, I charge a nominal fee. However, and anyone, I'm telling the truth, so I'll stand behind it, I'll never turn a child or the family away because they cannot, or for that matter, even choose not to pay or donate. Money is not an issue in terms of helping their kids, but we do it because we know it's the right thing to do. Now also, and I tell the participants that I am practicing what I preach. I am a student in life and a student for life. So I'm continuing to learn and sharpen my own skills. And right now I am actually training as a linguist, a wordsmith, and which is something I'm trying to incorporate, because at my age, what I'm learning now, I asked myself, now had I known this when I was 9 or 10, how much more would have had propelled me in life? Because in a nutshell, I know this is not what the program is about, but in a nutshell, you talked about the talking dictionary. We know that words have meanings.
Exactly.
Now, what I've learned, and I'm studying under, he tells me that he's not a teacher, so we're studying under and with. This is Imam Benjamin Bilal. Signs of Life is his organization. And what I have learned is not only do words have meanings, but alphabets, letters have meanings. I'm going somewhere with this. So on a fundamental level, on rudimentary, basic, if you understand the alphabets and what each letter means and symbolizes, then when you see those letters, alphabets in a word, just by understanding the definition of the smallest components, you'll have a pretty good idea what the word means. Now, let's try that out on some of these standardized tests, whether it be the SATs, the GMATs, the GREs, because it's taking things at the smallest level. Because I talked about like multiplication and math. There's a breakdown, and on the grammatical side of it, when I'm learning A, B, C, D, E, F, G, so on and so forth, I understand that A has a certain meaning. The letter B has a meaning. Then when I see, you can give me the longest word in the world, and as an astute student, I'll look at that word, I'll examine the letters and how they're put together, and I'll just tell you, oh, okay, Mr. Joe, okay, Miss Hilda, I'm in the 8th grade, but I can tell you that word means such and such and such. And be pretty close to dead on in your answer. So that's something I'm working on, and I'm trying to pull together a camp for the summer, and it's loose and sketchy, but that will be a large part of it. In addition to discipline, the physical activity, because our youth, they have a lot of energy, and I'm a firm believer in I don't like medication, not even for myself. And I see too many kids like zombies. They're on this Ritalin, not to pick on any particular drug, but Ritalin, and walking zombies. And I'm a firm believer that these younger generations, we all talk about this energy that they have, for lack of a better word, the spirit that's within them. And I believe they have that for a reason. So my job is not to break that spirit, but just, my buzzword again, redirect, shape, and mold that spirit. Because one day we'll understand why they are as they are. So never break it, don't drug them, just work with it and help them to channel it so it doesn't become self-destructive. We all talk about, on a broader level, STRUGG, prisoner reentry, the many other social ills that we are faced with, and how we need to change things. However, and I'm saying we as older people, not old people, but older people, we're not kids, have been unable to do so. And I believe that what is necessary to bring about the change that we all at least say we want, I believe that it exists in the younger generations.
Exactly.
In this strong, vivacious, fearless spirit that they have. So our job is not to drug them. We don't need the walking dead among us. It's not to break them. It's useless, you can't break it. So the next best thing is to shape, mold, and help them to redirect. Not inward, you don't want to self-destruct, but be able to identify a problem and then solve it. So physical activity in this summer camp, definitely, even down to the point working out, whatever it is, playtime to help burn off this energy. And morals, values, which I'm big on, and then true academics. And if it is successful, any who attend will never see school or learning the same again. But I'll see how that works. I don't
have a lot on your plate.
A whole lot on our plate. But you know what? And I know we're on a time schedule, but I want to talk just a little bit about, you mentioned 3rd grade. And everywhere I go, Hilda, I'm talking about the age 7. The age 7. And I never really get a chance to explain, I'm just, there's this naughty head man just jumping up, 7.
Here's your opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity. Some time ago at STRUGG, we held what we call a gang leadership conference. And we deal a lot with gangs that fall into the youth category. And at that point, we had done our research and realized that there were millions of dollars spent each year on gang prevention. But seemingly, the more money that was spent, the greater the problem became. So you're not going to get rid of the gangs. So the next best thing, in keeping with what I just said, is to try to redirect this energy that's among gangs and take it from self-destructive to positive things. So we held this gang leadership conference, and in preparing for it, I was doing research. That's just a hint that what I'm saying is not on the whim. I do a lot of research. So in doing the research, I saw a pattern. And what I learned was that the importance of age 7 in a child's life. In fact, I'll go on to say that whatever is happening in a child life at around age 7 will determine the level of success. It doesn't matter whether it's good success, there's good success, or bad success that child reaches in life. And I looking at autobiographies or books, this is the one I have in front of me now, the author always goes back. They're gonna, at some point, they'll say, well, when I was 7, such and such happened. And the next 7 years is 14, and then the next 7 years is they're 21 years of age, but they always reflect on the age 7. And that becomes so key because that means, once again, good success, bad success. Well, Joe, what's an example of bad success? May I read something?
I guess.
I'm not trying to do a plug, but this is a book called Ills of the Game. It's by Stacy Moore, published by Sean Pryor. That's important because they were both incarcerated. In fact, they wrote the book while they were incarcerated. And when the publisher, Sean, told me about the book, I like to support black people in business. I try. I said, you know what, Sean? I said, I don't read fiction. And it's a fictional, and I said, I don't read fiction. I said, I'm not trying to offend you. I said, there's just so much stuff to read. I just shy away from fiction, go with the truth. But I read this one, and I'm glad I did, because even though it was a fictional account, it was fiction and faction mixed together. Anyway, the dedication section of this says, to all children coming up in and exposed to the ills of the game, take this book as a warning in regards to drugs and the consequences that are sure to come. Stay strong and educate yourselves in a manner that will help you find ways out of the traps. These two brothers, that's a good example of bad success. They did reach a certain level in their life in terms of success, but it wasn't positive. And in terms of good success, you can just Hilda, Broady, even Joe. So there's good and bad success, but it all dates back to the age 7. And I'm so strong about that. I'll tell people, tell me what you did at age 7 and I'll tell you what you're doing now. So we can catch them, those formative years, by age 7. And another case, Herman Bell, he's actually a political prisoner. And in reading his bio, he went back to when I was 7. In his case, when he was 7, he left Mississippi and came to Brooklyn with his father. And that coming to Brooklyn and seeing the social conscious environment that was around him helped to shape and mold his life path, which went on to work in the original Black Panthers, and the rest is history. But age 7. So what I do with the youth is those that are 7 or younger, perfect. And I try hard to first assess where they're young. I mean, they understand. Help them understand where they are and help them chart a path for where they want to go. Now, the next 7-year increment from 7 is 14. Now, according to the research by the Department of Justice, and back to the gangs again, the critical age for gang involvement happens between 12 and 14. So these are my 7s again. Age 7, formative years. By age 14, 7 years later, you are merely acting on a decision that was made at age 7. You just wasn't old enough then, in many cases, to do something about it. But if you're in a gang at 14, the decision was made at age 7.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I was right. Matter of fact, I want to read something. I don't like to read, but I'm not making this stuff up. The same book, Ills of the Game. I got some stuff highlighted, and this is from Stacy Moore, the author. He says, The teens were a gang. And I'm omitting some stuff. And he says, I found them to be more interesting than my 7-year-old peers. My attention was given to those teens because I saw unity, power, and the attention that was given to them by other older people. This is a 7-year-old child. He's a man now, but he's saying at 7, he already knew, he saw the path he wanted to take. And he said, why? Because it had power, unity, et cetera, et cetera. Now at 14, then you're old enough to act on that. All right, another 7-year increment, and I'll leave it alone. 14 plus 7, how good are you at math, Joe? That's 21. All right, so let's say you're on a good path to good success. At 7, 14, you're starting high school. At 21, you're probably completing undergraduate college, and you're going off into the career world, starting your business, whatever. So yet again, whatever happens at 7 affects 14. What happens at 14 affects 21. And what happens at 21 affects the rest of your life. So on and so forth until retirement. So do you go off and be a good contributor to society, pay your taxes? And I just know Hilda personally, pay your FICA so she can get her Social Security.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Get that, and then, or do you spend your adulthood behind bars in this modern form of slavery? So age 7, if nothing else, that's why I keep stressing, catch our babies, catch our children, preferably before age 7. If it's after age 7, there is still hope. It just presents a greater challenge. But 7, so I don't, in terms of public schools and stuff, and I hope that school administrators, the Department of Education, whether it be on the city level, the state level, or national level, sees this program In My Shoes and take heed, pay some attention to what this funny-looking, naughty-head man is saying, and do your own research and help save our children, but start early. Those formative years are so important, and if we impact their lives then, we can prevent a lot of these societal ills that come later. And that's my passion for the youth. The younger the better, but even after age 7, there is still hope. It's just going to take a greater amount of work to reach them. And I cited some examples, but do your own reading, and as you see authors, biographies, autobiographies, most will revert back to when I was about 7. That's the magic number. And I'm not trying to be symbolism but the data, do the research and start making the connections.
I'm trying to go back to when I was 7. So
you told, we were talking before we aired tonight, and you were saying at 7 that one thing you did, you said you cooked a lot.
Yes.
You did a lot of cooking. I listen. That's part of my success at STRUGG. I'm a trained listener. But you said you did a lot of cooking, and to this day, you are a dynamic, expert chef.
Yes.
So tell me what you did at age 7. I can tell you what you can do or what you are doing now.
Okay, but I don't want to do that.
But you do it well.
I do it well, but I don't want to do that.
And you do it, so that's a level of success in terms of culinary arts. And you can go back to 7 and find it there.
Yeah, that's kind of phenomenal.
And I'll put your invoice in the mail.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, wow.
You want to share a little bit about your experience at Erasmus?
Absolutely. More youth. A couple weeks ago, Tanya Williams, and I'll mention her name because she's an integral part of StrugCon Inc. But she told me about a Know Your Rights training at Erasmus that was presented by a mutual acquaintance, Carlton Berkeley, Chucky. And I said, yeah, at the last minute, why not? I'll go. So we get to Erasmus, and because of whatever, Chucky, security, whatever. First, we got to the school. It's a high school, Erasmus High, in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn. And I did not grow up in New York City. I grew up in the South, South Carolina to be exact. So I went into this high school, and I was quite shocked. It was a metal detector. It looked like an airport or the many visits I make to prisons upstate New York, that was kind of the ambiance when you walk in. I don't want to go through that metal detector, It just, just does something to me every time I have to do that, go through, whether it's at the airport or wherever. And so Tanya pulled some, whatever, we didn't go through the detectives. We went in as part of the staff, of the presenting staff. And lo and behold, we did present. So Tanya made her presentation on her expertise as a retired police officer of New York City. And then she called me up later afterwards to speak about reentry and youth. And it was kind of it was spontaneous. But because I am passionate about this, I don't need a script. I live what I talk. So we're talking to the youth about police brutality, knowing your rights, and just what it means to be, in this book they refer to as the trap, the setup, the game. How do you survive amid these circumstances that you have no control over, but are met with daily, whether it be poverty, whether it be neighborhoods that are infested with drugs, neighborhoods that are inundated with illegal guns, all of these things that you have no direct control over. You don't bring them in, you don't manufacture them, but yet you must live with them on a daily basis. And I use the word live because many people die. So just talking with the young people, how do you maneuver these minefields? Yes, we are in a war. War on drug, war on whatever you want to call it. We are in a war. So how do you, as a young man or young woman, maneuver these minefields, these booby traps that have been set by whomever? You know who you are. I don't have to call them out. But how do you get through this without getting caught up in this, ending up in prison, or without getting caught up in this and ending up in someone's graveyard? So when I started talking, Tanya did her piece, and the youth were it's like 100 teenagers. I'd say from age maybe 14, 15 through about 19, 20. What I later found out was this was part of an alternative school within Erasmus High. So I think these youngsters, they come in about 4 in the afternoon and they stay until 8 p.m. And I thought that was marvelous. I started by commending them first for even being in school, whatever the circumstances, because they could have said, to heck with this, I'm just dropping out. So they're in this alternative school. I thought that was commendable. And then if they're there, that lets me know now that there is some problem, not necessarily a learning disability. It could be behavioral issues. It could be family circumstances that have them in this situation. So I thought it was just commendable, and I made them give themselves an applaud that you're even in school. And we talked, and asked me many questions. They got involved. If you can get the teenagers' attention, then major accomplishment. And the little laughters and which is expected among teenagers, little groups and people on no phones, but just private conversations. Within moments, you could hear a pin drop, or as some would say, you could hear a rodent urinate on cotton.
Wow.
Because they were just, it became real. And they asked me many questions as a black man, and I did the best I could to answer it without scaring the bejesus out of them. I started talking about this whole security system at the school and how did it make them feel. And they didn't even notice. And I thought, now a whole generation has been conditioned to go straight from school
To jail.
to prison. They looked at me strange, and I says, I'm a little bit older than you guys are. I says, but and I didn't grow up in New York. I says, but this is not normal. And I think one of the principal was there of that program, and many of the staff, teachers. And someone started, I said, I understand why it's done for security, even though stuff still happens in the school. But I says, it has to do something to your psyche. I think the staff got it, but the students certainly did not understand where I was coming from. And
It's instilled in them that it's for their safety.
for their safety, yeah.
For their safety. This has been going on more intensely since 9/11. Then you have all of these shootings in the schools in Connecticut. So it's instilled in them that they're keeping me safe.
Yeah.
So that's how. So we're saying, because we didn't grow up with, we didn't even have security guards in our school. We had
no.
the dean.
Yeah.
The dean was the security. Now it's everyday occurrence. That's just how it is.
Now and the security guards that are in the school, these are not, well, at least the ones that I saw.
Police.
Right, they're part of the police department.
Right, they're police.
Yeah, they're not like a security firm.
No, they're police.
So this is, when you hear people like Hilda, Broady, Joe Smith talking about prison, school to prison pipeline, this is real. And it's happening, it's so pervasive that the youngsters, you heard that expression, they never knew what hit them. This is a setup. One question that was asked, I was asked about, as an older person, an older brother, as a father figure, being a black man, how do I feel? Especially we were talking about police brutality and the victimization of a people. And in short, the answer I gave was, I think in times like these, this is the most or the closest understanding I have to what my ancestors went through as slaves. Meaning that any of you beautiful children out there, if you're in a situation where you are being brutalized by government officials, all I can do is stand and watch, lest the same thing happen to me. And as I spoke with them, I shared from my many accounts of research and reading about plantation life, where the black male on the plantation had to watch as his mother, his wife, his sister, his daughter were subject to the slave owner's sexual desires, subject to the slave owner's whip, for whatever reason, for no reason. Watch their sons and daughters being snatched from under them. And as a black man, all they could do is stand there and watch. At best, they could probably turn their back, trying to ignore what was happening. So here in 2014, we're at Erasmus High School talking about know your rights amid the escalating cases of police brutality. And if I saw any of you tonight out on Flatbush Avenue and you became the victim of this, all I can do as a black man is stand and watch. So I says, this is real. And anyway, the young man, I happened to run into one student the other day in Brooklyn. I was walking down the street. We're real people. We walk, we talk. So, and I said, you remember me? And he said, yeah, I remember you. I says, good. I said, we're coming back. He says, yeah. He says, when? And the way he said when, his eyes lit up, and he could not have pretended. And I read I do my own, I'm always assessing. I says, he's saying, let me know when, so I'll make sure to be to school on that day. But I says, no, I said, we're coming back. And I said, we get, excited. And he says, when? I said, I spoke with your teacher already. I said, I kept my word. I said, would call, and I did call. I said, when you get back to school, you tell your teacher, I saw that naughty-head man. The one that was there doing all that talking. And we want him back because the young people are hungry. They want to talk with people that can identify. They want to talk with people that, yeah, I see him, I see her in Brooklyn. I see them in the Bronx. They're not coming in from the suburbs. They're not coming in from Long Island, New Jersey, Connecticut, upstate, and trying to fix our problem. They have a vested interest because they are part of the community, part of the neighborhoods. So I hope that Erasmus High, and this particular program within the school, I hope that they follow through and invite us back to help these young people, and because that's what we do. And I know you work with youth as well. We do it because it's the right thing to do. Funding would be
phenomenal.
Icing on the cake. But even without it,
We're gonna do it.
we do it. And that's how we do things.
It's, even if it's one kid at a time.
That's right. If I can keep one out of prison, then my life has been worthwhile, because I know that one could be the one that keep millions out. So it's truly about planting seeds.
And they do listen.
They do. I mentioned a young man from Erasmus when I saw him on the street, and I can't even duplicate the enthusiasm. First, that he remembered. How many you see people presenting? You know, what were they talking about? But he remembered, and vividly, and was so excited and hungry for more. And so I left the young man part and saying, well, you hang in there, you keep doing what you're doing, and keep your head up. Words of encouragement. And too often, when I think a lot of our adults, we're afraid of young people, especially teens. And that's another issue. How do you help someone that you're scared of? And many of and I'll say it, we do a lot of community work. We're patrolling, some not so much in the Bronx, mostly I just don't have a connection up here like that, but many of the housing projects in Brooklyn, Brownsville, East New York, Bedford-Stuyvesant. I've done work in Harlem, and we're out there among the people, actually walking the streets. And we do it because if we don't, who will? The alternative is bleak. It's either us, death, or prison. And I refuse to live like that. So I will continue to do what I feel I have to do, as much as I can do, for as long as I can do it. And I do it with the right motivation. Some people enter into a thing to make a name for themselves. That is okay. I ain't mad at you. Others enter into a thing because they feel it's their calling, their mission, their vocation in life. And I can work with all kinds. I'll share now, there's no shame in my game. My reason is the latter. I feel that's my purpose on this earth, to do this. And I will continue to do it as long as I can. And knowing that one day things will get better if we keep working towards solutions.
That's basically the only thing that we can do, is work toward what we know it can be.
Yes.
With just a little bit of help and a lot of faith.
A lot of faith. Yeah.
Because I refuse to give up on our youth. I told you I need them to pay FICA, but I also need for them to be able to give me my medication.
Yeah.
When I'm older and infirmed, and I need them to know how to read so that they can read the labels.
Right. Count.
Let's be a little selfish now. We can be selfish with it as well, but it's also to give them the vision, the opportunity to know that they can have a vision, and that they can make it a reality, that it could be real. Because I was told no so many times that we can't. A lot of we can't comes from us saying that we can. So I say, yes, you can. Yeah, you better. And then sometimes I'm a little strong arm, but just so that they could get a glimmer.
Yes.
A glimmer of what it could be.
Yes.
No, we know what it should be, but a glimmer of what it could be, and to not hold on to their lives as they are, but to see that we can make it better each day. Because sometimes you wake up and you feel like crap. Oh my God, it's going to be a crappy day. And I cleaned that up really good, didn't I? But you know what? You shouldn't take the crappy feeling outside with you.
Yeah.
And I've actually learned how to smile now. And hey, because I'm going to do something that's going to make me and somebody else feel better. Even if it's one thing per day, I'm cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to do more. I mean, and I'm working with this 80-year-old woman trying to help her get her Medicare.
Wow.
And this is it's a nightmare. We've been to Jamaica. Don't go to Jamaica Social Security. I go to Queens and take her to New Rochelle now. Yeah. And we got up there, and because I kept saying, well, they treat you better here. They don't have to take off your shoes or anything. You just go to the office. And this one gentleman that she had one guy. He said the papers are filled out wrong, and I was like, oh man. So I said, well, is there a way you can fax it over there and we'll wait. I said, otherwise I got to take her back to Queens and then come back another day with her. And so he said, no, we can fax it. So he says, then you go get another number. And we did all of that. And then finally they said it was faxed over, got a number, and then we got another person.
You know, at STRUGG, and that was on its onset, that was my, you will never, that's my word, be treated or feel like a number. You don't need a number. You're a human being. And just that bureaucracy and that number part, it does a lot to the whole process.
I'm going to go into this at another time because we're running out of time. Wow. See how fast that time went by?
It was fast.
It really goes by fast because what we're talking about are things that make sense for our people. And that's what we're supposed to be. So again, I have to say, thank you for choosing In My Shoes, where we're trying a different approach to servicing the world.
got a message for you. Check it out. How many of us offended by the boxers or the sagging pants in our community? I got a song for you. Check it out. Here we go. Come on.
Pull your pants up, pull your pants up. Pull your pants up, pull your pants up. Pull your pants up, pull your pants up.
Yeah.
It's the new style.
Come on, Colette, talk to me.
Say, Mr. Harris, sagging jeans is an epidemic.
That's right.
One that I've never been a fan of. And I can't stand how these young men, they sagging, they dragging. Come on, pull your pants up. And I know us girls, we in the wrong for not putting these fellas on.
You got the power.
But I'm offended by boxers. And I think that we all should be.
Come on, help me.
Pull your pants up, pull your pants up. Pull your pants up, pull your pants up. Pull your pants up, pull your pants up.
Why?
It's the new style.
Come on.
Pull your pants up, pull your pants up.
Yeah.
Pull your pants up, pull your pants up. Pull your pants up, pull your pants up. It'll make your mama proud.
Here we go.
We living in a world affected by an epidemic. Sagging jeans and sweatpants is how men living. Need to set the example to make the future right. So hey, our message when we hit you with the chance.
Pull your pants up, pull your pants up. Pull your pants up,
It's kinda catchy.
pull your pants up, pull your pants up. It's the new style. Pull your pants up, pull your pants up. Pull your pants up, pull your pants up. Pull your pants up, pull your pants up. It'll make your mama proud.
I know you heard your belt say. You know your belt was talking to you this morning. Said, come on, just take me